Silk on the fire escape. The scarf was not hers. I knew because Clara never wore green. On our second date, she'd said emerald made her look like a traffic light that lost its mind. And I'd laughed hard enough to spill Cabernet on my shirt. The scarf I found tangled on our fire escape at dawn was green, not timid sage or practical olive, but a shameless ribbon of silk, the color of permission. It fluttered in the wet September breeze like it had climbed there in the night and gotten drunk on the skyline. I opened the window and the city climbed into the apartment. Toast smoke, coffee ghosts, the distant hiss of a bus. My studio monitors sat silent on my desk, cones like two dumbfounded eyes watching me hold a stranger's softness by the hem. Clara had already left for an early meeting. The gallery was launching a show called Negative Space, which felt, in the moment, unnecessarily on the nose. She kissed my jaw while fastening an earring, saying, "You don't have to wait up. Wine after with donors, the usual." Her perfume had been one I didn't recognize. I never notice perfume unless it makes a room choose sides. Our building is one of those old brick ones that think they're a ship and we're all just passengers. The fire escapes lace its face like metal handwriting. Across the court, sideways and up one floor, my neighbor sometimes appears in a big white t-shirt and bare legs to smoke and watch the city pretend it isn't lonely. I don't know her name. She nods, I nod. We share weather and respect. That morning she was there already, hair dragged into a high knot, camera hanging from her neck like a medal. "You lost something," she called, voice warm as a mug. "Or found something," I said, raising the scarf. She studied me, then flicked her ash toward the concrete with a delicate wrist. "That shade looks good on trouble." "Thanks for the omen," I said. She smiled and went inside. I stood there feeling ridiculous, a man in boxers and a t-shirt holding evidence he hadn't asked for. I placed the scarf on the radiator, a snake asleep on iron ribs, and tried to mix two tracks I'd promised for an indie movie that needed its heart to sound expensive. I work as a sound designer. My days are rain shaped into rhythm, footsteps taught to confess, rooms persuaded to sing. If you do my job long enough, silence becomes a plot twist you never fully see coming. Great thing about sound, it carries truth disguised as accident. It was sound that gave me the second clue. The week before, Clara's laughter had started to arrive home with corners knocked off. Not less of it, if anything, more, but pitched differently, like she'd learned a new audience and couldn't stop performing for its echo. She'd taken to humming in the bathroom after her donor dinners, a melody that fought her mouth, too low for her usual taste. That morning, with the silk on my radiator, she'd left a voice message while running for the subway. "Love you, Max," she said, and then, faint but there, another voice, male, warm, too close, murmured later, and my girlfriend repeated it under her breath without knowing she had. Later. I didn't smash anything. I made coffee and listened to it go from hopeful drip to steady pour. I texted her a heart and an inside joke. Then I opened my phone and scrolled our shared calendar to see what could be learned from colored rectangles. Board meeting, install, nail appointment, Lumen Charity Gala, Friday black tie. I did not see breathwork or Caspian or any name clean enough to hide a mess beneath it. Just like that, suspicion became a second mouth behind my teeth, breathing when I was. The neighbor across the court knocked that afternoon. When I opened, she leaned against the doorframe as if trying to convince it to misbehave. The camera was still around her neck, shirt still big, legs still bare. "I'm Nina," she said, sticking out a hand. "Sorry, smoke sometimes turns me into a better version of myself, so I thought I should come apologize in person for the omen." "Max," I said, taking the hand, "you're forgiven on credit." She glanced toward my desk, the cables, my mutinous monitors. "You do music," she said, not as a question. "I do photographs, adjacent vices." We laughed lightly like people circling a code. "Want coffee?" I offered. She stepped inside without looking at the scarf on the radiator, which meant she had absolutely seen it. I won't say no. We talked in the comfortable way strangers talk when the apartment is small and the shared wall is very real. Nina had moved in 2 months ago to shoot a book about the city's small theaters, the kind with 20 seats and 2 miracles. She asked about the sound suite I'd built from foam and patience. I asked about lenses like I knew more than I did. It didn't feel like flirting. It felt like a draft through a room that has been closed too long, a suggestion of movement. Before she left, she touched the scarf briefly. "That shade belongs to someone who loses things on purpose," she said, "for the story." "Or the alibi," I said. Her eyes lifted, surprised that I'd spoken a sentence she'd been assembling. "You okay, Max?" "Ask me Friday," I said. The Lumen Gala arrived like weather. The tuxedo I hadn't worn since my cousin's wedding felt like a lie that fit too well. Clara emerged in a dress engineered by a person who knows exactly how fabric confesses. It was backless, and the silk cue of the night made my fingers want to tell her the truth about gravity. She spun, winked, said, "Don't be late," and kissed me with lips that tasted like citrus and resolutions. At the museum, the city's beautiful people and those who invent them swam through light. I stuck to the edges, did my time at her side, then drifted to a balcony overlooking an installation that resembled the world's most disciplined thunderstorm. A man joined her near the bar, trim, expensive beard, the kind of ankle that knows it's dressed well. He touched her elbow like a man who thinks proximity is consent. She threw her head back and let a laugh out I had heard in our bathroom 2 nights earlier. There is a point at which what you suspect and what you see shake hands and agree to stop pretending they don't know each other. I didn't make a scene. I took a photograph. The sound of my phone's fake shutter felt like a small, private justice. Clara found me 20 minutes later under a Calder mobile that looked, suddenly, like a map of outcomes. "You look like you swallowed a violin," she said, arranging herself under my arm. "I prefer percussion," I said. "Who's the man who touches elbows for a living?" She didn't flinch, only smoothed the dress along her hip. "Curator," she said, "wants a soundscape for the spring show. Max, please, not here." I looked at the green splash of silk at the nape of her spine, a ribbon threaded through some impossible bend, knotted with an intimacy I had not earned, the same green as the scarf on our radiator. "Later, then," I said, and meant it like a threat and a promise simultaneously. I waited 2 days. Not because I wanted to, because the part of me that builds songs knows beginnings are cheap and endings cost what they cost. On Monday night, I chose not to be home. I texted that I'd be at the studio late, threw a sweater on over a t-shirt and went upstairs instead. Nina's door was open a crack. Cello music leaked through, a low, thick ribbon that gave the hallway a pulse. She opened before I could knock. She had flour on her hands. "You look like a man who knows a secret and it didn't morph him into a superhero," she said. I might have made a face while knowing it, I admitted. "Congratulations," she said. "You're human, come in. I'm making a tart doomed to collapse." In her kitchen, the air smelled like butter held to the edge of darkness and rescued. I watched her work the crust into the tin with fingers that knew when to insist and when to beg. The radio hummed. We were close in a way that would look like intimacy from across a courtyard, but up close, had the dignity of restraint. Sometimes interiors are erotic because the doors are open and no one chooses to walk through. "Clara," I said to the bowl of sliced pears, and a man with a beard too thoughtful for its own good. Nina's eyes flickered toward me and away. "I wondered when you'd say her name." "I don't want the story that makes me hero or victim," I said. Just the one that keeps a spine. You already have one, she said simply. It's the part of you that came for flour and not for fire. We ate the tart by the window with our knees touching. The tart did collapse and neither of us minded. In the quiet after plates were scraped clean, the city leaned in to listen. Nina put her head on my shoulder and spoke without looking at me. If you want to see without being seen, you can sit on my fire escape. No one really looks up. It's a trick I use when a frame needs a truth it refuses to offer. I did not ask if she'd used the trick on me. I did not ask if she'd seen the green silk climb my life like ivy. We sat together until the hallway light clicked itself off like a shy thing. From her fire escape, I saw our kitchen framed, Clara at the island, pouring wine into a glass she used when she wanted to feel like the night had chosen her. She checked her phone, smiled at something that reached her from elsewhere, then set the device face down as if privacy were merely a clever angle. A few minutes later, the elevator groaned. The door opened. The beard entered with a grocery bag and the kind of grin men wear when they believe they were invited for dessert. Clara welcomed him with a hug that looked like a rehearsal. The hug became longer than professional. Their kiss, when it came, was not obscene. It was careful, like two people taking a sculpture off a truck. The camera that is my brain took a picture I will never develop. "You okay?" Nina whispered against my sleeve. "No," I said, "but I'm not drowning." She reached for my hand and laced her fingers with mine. It felt like air finding lungs it liked. I didn't storm downstairs. I stayed where I was and learned the shape of the anger that didn't want to break anything but silence. When the beard left, I went home and slept on the couch because I didn't want our bed to think I couldn't tell it the truth. Clara began the confession the next morning over coffee, as if the smell of it made honesty an ingredient. "I've been feeling," she began, the ellipsis doing terrible work. "Seen," I said, "by someone who isn't me." She leaned on the island, the green silk at her wrist, mocking me gently. "He started as work. He made the gallery feel like a cathedral. I felt alive." "You always were," I said. "You just forgot you didn't need a priest." She cried without mascara because she'd anticipated this version and planned for it. "I don't want to lose what we are," she said. "We aren't that anymore," I replied, soft as a bridge. "I'm not going to scream, but I'm also not going to be the man you try contrition on to see if it fits." We divided things without knives. She took the green silk. I let her. It belonged to the story she'd chosen, and I needed my hands free. People expect a new love to leap from the ashes like a phoenix with perfect hair. Real life is more patient. Nina drifted into my days by increments. A coffee in the afternoon at the bodega that knows your name. A grocery run where we argued softly about peaches. A Sunday morning where she fell asleep on my chest during a black and white movie that had postponed the war for 40 minutes, and then remembered it had to arrive on time. The first time we kissed was not in a bed, or against a door, or while the city set itself on fire to give us an alibi. We kissed on the fire escape because that's where our story decided it wanted to begin. We were watching a storm taxi along the horizon, lightning turning the river into a rumor, when Nina turned her face to mine like the world had wanted to do that all day. She tasted like mint and the last apricot. No one across the court was watching. The kiss was slow, not because we were being good, but because slow was what the hour asked for. If there were sparks, they made no noise. My palms found the small of her back and pressed, not to claim but to steady. We breathed the same air until it felt original. "I like your patience," she said, forehead resting on mine. "I like the way you say that like it's a thing that might break," I answered. We kept it on the safe side of scandal. You could put our moments on YouTube, and they would pass the algorithm like it was a chaperone with a secret soft spot for romance. But the electricity didn't care where it was broadcast. It lived in small rituals. The way her fingers tucked my collar, the way my voice changed when I said her name and meant it as a location. On the night Clara moved out, I stood at the window and watched a moving truck be bigger than our hallway. She took the curated things, the polished ones. I kept the battered table we'd found at a market because its scars told the kind of truth I wanted to keep eating off. When the last box was gone, I went upstairs and knocked. Nina opened the door wearing a sweatshirt that could swallow a person whole. She searched my face and found a version she liked. "Hungry or tired?" she asked. "Both," I said. "Good," she said. "I have pasta and a movie that thinks it's profound." We ate out of bowls on the couch. Halfway through, she slid her foot under my thigh and left it there like a claim. I kissed her hair. The city outside was busy reminding itself it's immortal. Inside, we practiced the small religion of two people who have decided to build a safer fire out of the pieces left behind. Sometimes I still find threads. Not silk, those days are gone, but cotton from the sheet we drag onto the fire escape to make our own cinema against the brick. We project old films and new ones and occasionally nothing at all, letting the light flicker across our faces like a promise we have no intention of breaking. When the wind lifts the sheet and the sky peeks in, I hold it with one hand and her fingers with the other, and think about how desire is less ablaze than a careful blue flame you protect with your body. I never learned whom the green scarf ultimately wanted. Maybe that's the point. Some colors don't belong to a person or a season, they belong to a wake-up call. Mine arrived on a Tuesday, smelling like rain and other people's decisions. The door to the fire escape is still hard to close when the weather changes. I oil it now. I keep it honest. If it sticks, I don't force it, I step out anyway. The city will be there. So will Nina, camera at her hip, smile a quiet dare. And the air between us, the cleanest thing I've ever breathed, will carry, if I'm listening, the only vow I've learned to trust. Later, yes, but also now.